Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Paleoworld. By fairly popular request, this is going to become a series on this channel, so I'll be uploading more and more episodes of it as time goes on. Anyway, with that being said, today I'm working on the next enclosure in the Jurassic Trails section, the Stegosaurus Hills, or Stegosaurus Hillside. I don't know, I use both interchangeably. Anyway, this, as the name suggests, is going to be a huge Stegosaurus enclosure with a hill in the back. And it's sort of going to be similar to the Allosaurus Enclosure, because I figured it'd be nice to sort of have some theming in the enclosures of the Jurassic section. That being said, I didn't just want to make it another, like, Allosaurus Enclosure, basically. You'll see I tried to do a waterfall, sort of like the Allosaurus Enclosure, but I decided I didn't like it, so I got rid of it. But yeah, I didn't want to make it exactly the same as the Allosaurus Enclosure. You can see I also tested out, like, normal fences from the fence tool, but I decided I didn't like that, so I ended up making a custom fence instead, and scaling up the Stegosaurus the same way I did the Allosaurus Enclosure. It's a fairly simple, like, gray metal wire fence. I based it off of fences that you'd see for rhinoceros or elephants in zoos, and it's about eye level to a person. So if you're going through in first-person mode, that's about where it'll be. It's just a simple little thing, 7 pieces, but I still think it looks really nice, and adds that little extra bit of realism that, you know, it's sort of like how a zoo would house this kind of animal. You can also get the fence on the workshop. I'll make sure to put the share code in the description. There's not much actually happening in the Speedbuild right now. I'm mostly just placing fences. So, for now, I've already made a community post about this, but I wanted to thank everybody who's watched the Allosaurus video so much for all the support on it. It was basically just a test run, if that makes any sense. I wasn't really expecting it to get as many views as it did, but I'm super happy that it did get that many views, so thank you guys so much. Here's where I actually start decorating the enclosure with stuff like the taiga brush, which I really like. I think it looks a lot nicer than the normal dirt brush. And of course the coniferous trees. Don't mind the back of the hill, I'm going to add a rock wall back there in a second. The rock wall is really good because it, like, sort of blocks off the dinosaurs from going right up to the fence, because if you haven't already noticed, that fence is actually the very edge of the park. Right past it is a road, which is entirely decorative, but it's sort of for realism, because you'd imagine, like, the guests wouldn't just spawn into this park out of nowhere. They'd actually drive here. Now, of course, it's time to add some of the main foliage. Ferns. Just like with the Allosaurus Enclosure, I'm adding tons upon tons of ferns to sort of give it that Jurassic theming. Because, like I said last episode, the Jurassic was filled with ferns. Although, in all fairness, I do know that the Morrison Formation isn't exactly known for how green it was. Still, I really do like the ferns, and I feel like they really bring the enclosure together. With, you know, their nice greenery and, you know, adding a little bit of, like, ground-level shrubs. I'm also going to be adding some of the cycad food brush in a second. Yeah, here we go. Because that's what Stegosaurus eat in the game, and the Stegosaurus have to have something to eat. Although I did make sure that it only has the low-level one so that it doesn't really obstruct anything. I'm also adding some redwood trees, some red cedar trees, because I figured that the theming of the Jurassic area, in order to differentiate it from the Pangea section a bit, should have redwood trees as well. I think it makes it look nicer, too. I'm also placing this Stegosaurus Sign here, which there's no Stegosaurus Sign in the base game. It's just that I got it off the workshop. It was made by a person who's named, I believe, Alon, and I'll put the share code in the description, too. For now, though, it's just going to be more of me placing rocks and adding foliage, so I'll leave you guys with the montage and come back to you later. Alright, so here I'm adding some more finishing touches to the enclosure. Just some reeds around the lake and a little bit more paths with the taiga brush. And then of course in a second I'll be adding the same concrete wall I did for the Allosaurus Enclosure. I got one comment on the last video, I don't remember by who, but they said that it made them feel like it was a zoo they'd been to before, or something along those lines. And that was my intention when making the concrete wall, because a lot of zoos have concrete walls like this as like backdrops for animal enclosures. And I figured it'd also be good to add because there's going to be more enclosures past the wall, like right next to the Stegosaurus one. Now I'm starting a little bit more work on the guest area. That lower section of wall you just saw me add is for a viewing gallery. And I'm going to put a viewing gallery there later. For the walking path right in front of the enclosure, I decided to sort of copy the garden thing I did for the Allosaurus habitat. Where when you walk by, there's this little like stone wall divider, and that's where the little garden is. I'm going to be using some more of the thyme bushes to fill it in, because again, they just look super nice. Before we look at the finished Stegosaurus Enclosure, I wanted to show off the previous two areas, the Guest Plaza and the Allosaurus Enclosure. In the Guest Plaza, I've added a bunch of wooden buildings made by Gus Delpe, I believe his name is. They perfectly fit the vibe of the area, and I also made this little walk trail sign. As for the Allosaurus Enclosure, I've added quite a few new things. There's some enrichment in the form of this bone and this hanging tire. I can't remember who made the hanging tire, but I'll put their name in the description. And I also made this little scratching post myself. You can actually get this enclosure on the workshop. I'll put the share code in the description. But for now, let's go to the Stegosaurus Enclosure. And so, here it is, completely finished in all of its hillside glory. Here's one of the adult males grazing, with some of the others in the background. And here's the two juveniles playing around. I decided to make the males green with red plates and the females more brown and gray. Here's a little shot of the lake. As always with Evolution 3, the natural areas are absolutely stunning. Here's the view from the viewing gallery. I also haven't mentioned this, and I don't think it's in the recording, but there are some enrichment items. And here's the guest path viewing, more or less at least. Just like with the Allosaurus, you can get this habitat on the workshop, which I'll put in the description. And with that, that's everything. Goodbye.